In this video, we're going to learn how to create primitives using AutoGrid. All right, so looking at our drone, we've built out the body, we've got the legs, and what I want to do is I want to start on the next part, which is going to be the motor and the propeller. So whenever we create models, there's going to be situations where we're going to be placing models in our scene, and sometimes it can get a little, I don't want to say complicated, but a little convoluted with placing objects on other objects. So 3ds Max has a great solution for this. So let's go to our top view by hitting T on the keyboard. And what I want to do is I want to create the motor inside of this spot here. Now I could inset this polygon or set of polygons and then extrude it up and build it that way. But I would rather use a separate primitive altogether. So to do this, let's go to the Create panel, Geometry, and then Cylinder. And whenever you create a new primitive, you have the option of turning on AutoGrid. What this allows you to do is create objects on surfaces of other objects. So if I left click and drag, you'll notice that this starts right at the base and inside of that drone piece, and then I can drag up my height, left click again, and now I have my cylinder right inside of my drone piece here. So I know that that is perfectly in there. Now, we might want to make sure that this is centered up on this, because how do we get it to the other pieces? You'll notice here, because it is a separate object, it doesn't create it in the other places. So one thing that we could do, so if I go to my top view, I could turn on the snapping and then right click, make sure that we have vertex mode on, and then all I have to do now is hit F3 and then drag that around and it'll pop right into the middle of that vertex. And so now I know that it's perfectly centered on that polygon. And then all I have to do now is go ahead and start modeling on this piece. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's hit P on the keyboard and let's go to Modify Panel. Let's convert it to an editable poly. And then let's make sure that we quadrify everything. So I'm going to go ahead and select this vertex and this one. Let's right click and let's go to Connect. Remember that by right clicking you have this nice quad menu, and this could be great for getting to some of those tools that you can get to very quickly. And we could set up some extra tools, but I'm not going to do that just yet. Let's go ahead and right click and let's go to Cut, and let's left click on this vertex and go to this one. Now you might have to move the mouse around to get that to associate. If you don't see the icon, it probably will not cut to that. So you just need to move the perspective. Now with this, I'm going to go ahead and isolate it because it's now inside of that other object. And so if I isolate it, it's going to turn everything off but the object that I'm working on. So now I can come in and I can cut on this piece. So let's right click and cut. Go from here down to here. And you'll notice there it didn't cut through there, so I'll have to try it one more time. Go to Cut, go from here, and then move around to the other side, and then to here. Okay, so now we've quadrified that, and we can turn Cut off, and then we'll go ahead and turn isolation mode off, and let's go to Polygon Selection, select those polygons, and go to our front view by hitting F. And then I'm just going to move this up into the air. Now you'll notice that something has happened. It didn't move as I thought it should. We still have our snap turned on. So let's hit Control Z, turn that snap off, and then drag it up. Now you'll notice here that we have this little line that goes through that. We'll talk about how to get that in a little bit. I just want to make sure that we're blocking out the basic forms. Now I'm going to go up to the top of this, and I'm going to show you a different way of getting that bevel. We could go ahead and bring it right here and then use the bevel tool, or we could bring it up to the top here, and then what we can do is go to edge mode, and I'm going to actually convert my selection. So converting selections can be done by holding down Control or Shift to convert the selection. So if I hold down Control and then click on edge mode, this will select all of the edges that were touching the polygon selection that I had before. Let me hit Control Z one time and go back to polygon mode. And let's hold down Shift. If I hold down Shift and go to edge mode, what it does is it selects the outer edges of that selection. So now I have just that loop that I wanted. Now what I can do is use the chamfer tool. Let's go to the settings. And what chamfer does is it splits the selected edge into 2 or more edges. So you'll see that we have a chamfer of 1, so it creates 1 extra edge. We could go ahead and add 2, and what you'll notice that it does is it starts to curve between that. Now, the more I add, the softer that's going to get. Okay. Now, all I want to do is just add just a bevel to that. I don't need anything else. And you do have some other options as well, like the chamfer amount. So this is going to determine how much that is chamfered. We have a mode where it will use a standard chamfer or a quad chamfer. Now, whenever you are chamfering edges, you need to be very careful because sometimes it will create triangles that you didn't anticipate. Normally, I like to chamfer along loops that are continuous. Sometimes, like on a box, if you were to chamfer all of the edges where 3 edges come together, that can create a triangle. And so you can use the quad chamfer to get around that. Let's see, what else do we have? We have the edge tension. That's not activated. We can actually chamfer it and it will separate instead of creating a polygon in between that. That's not something that we need. And then we have a smooth chamfer. What it does is it inherits the smoothing groups and will apply those as needed. And we can do the smooth type and then the smooth threshold. Now normally what I do is just leave everything as default and then hit OK. So now that we've chamfered that edge, you can see that it's pretty much the exact same result as if we were to bevel it or extrude it and then scale it. Again, this reaffirms that you can do, or you can use multiple tools to get the same result. And that's what really matters. So now that we have this motor in place, what I want to do is go to polygon mode by hitting 4 on the keyboard. It should have saved our selection across the top, and it did. And let's use inset to create this nice little rim here. And I'm going to bring this up, and let's go ahead and do an inset of 2. And then I'm going to extrude that in a negative direction. So let's do -4 just to start out. Let me hit F3 just to see how far that goes down in there. I think that will be good right there, and then we'll hit OK. All right, so now that we have that, we can now start working on getting the propellers themselves. So what I want to do is I want to show you how we can start using geometry polygons to get us started with another separate object. And this is called borrowing geometry or cloning geometry. And we'll talk about that next.